Hi, my name is Louise Clark, and today I want to address crack cocaine as an alter that's been created in sense of MK Ultra mind control. I did a blog on the topic a few years back, and so what I will do is, like what I do with often with my blogs, is turn them into videos by reading through it and adding anything that's new that I need to add. So bear with me. I do have other videos on YouTube, how to stop using crack cocaine, reclaim your life, how to stop using heroin, reclaim your life, how to stop using cocaine. It's similar answers to most, but I did them as separate videos. So here, and it may be that they make heroin alters and crack alters and cocaine alters and the various different alters for different drugs. I mean, yes, I'm aware that sometimes different alcohol, like brandy, might trigger one alter where whiskey might trigger another, and so forth. So substances play a part in mind control slavery. So the blog, if you wanted to visit it, I'll put it underneath the video, is it's called Fire on Babylon. Crack alters are activated in unruly slaves. And I wrote it 12th of January 2012, and it was on the back of that I was in some group on Facebook where they were sort of exposing mind control and these things, and then someone wrote in there about Sinead O'Connor. It said she was in danger, and someone written underneath, oh, crackhead. And I hadn't heard of any rumours of her using crack at all, but it's like, because I'm aware of crack alters, and I'm aware that the top of the pile is the Pope, and she tore up pictures of the Pope, and so she is a little bit unruly, and you don't really attack the Pope and get away with it too easily. So it fitted. So I then was sort of angered by it, because I just thought, well, the group's meant to be sort of to try and gain understanding, but all they really wanted to do was judge the celebrities, pop idols, and say that, you know, look at them, look at those drug using, and then really it's like they're set up as idols for our youth to follow and copy. So it's a little bit of a trickery going on in the celebrity world, because there is a lot of drugs in that world, but addiction is sort of related as well to what's going on in your life, and if you're quite successful, it's harder for the drug to have such a strong hold as it does on celebrities, but people ain't aware of that because they're pumped with, like, oh look, yeah, they've got so much money now and it's just drugs everywhere. And yeah, there is that point, they make sure of it to get back and to keep control over people. So on that day that I saw all the messages, I sort of got a bit fired up, and so that's why I wrote the blog. And then later I did see, I think on Twitter, that Sinead had written some message asking for help, and she left her email address for everyone, public. And I did write to her to offer her help, but instead she didn't respond. She probably didn't get the message, because then my computers were attacked for even trying to offer her help. And I have, funny enough, I have tried to help a few celebrities, like by addressing them, like George Michael. I drove to his house in Highgate a few years ago and delivered my book, and I knew Kate Moss lived nearby, so I thought, well, someone will read it, and maybe I was asking for some sort of help in a business sense, because he was quite good at business, but that wasn't to be. I wrote to Amy Winehouse long ago, like maybe 2009-10, saying that I could offer her help, and I got no response. And when I've tried to advertise my books to help crack users on her website that they set up for her with her money, they've never responded. So yes, and so yeah, I wrote to Sinead and said, you know, if that's the case or whatever, I can help you. but I didn't get any response, and I don't think it was her not wanting any help. So I was inspired by Sinead's song Fire on Babylon to write this blog. So I need to sort of go through it a little bit to get the gist of what I was talking about. So I'm saying about how I'd seen that, and also, yeah, the video that she's got. I put the video on the blog, Fire on Babylon, and in it, I mean, I don't know really what was meant to be said about through the video, but to me it looked like altars in this song, because there's a little, she's like a little girl curled up in a doll's house sort of thing, like a little child, and there's all this sort of stuff that really fits with mind control. So I put that video on the blog, but then that kept being removed, and it's like, you're not having that video there. But again, there's so much games with stuff on the net, it's like a playground, and so you can't really say, oh, it means anything. It could be just someone, because I get so many people playing with my stuff, it's like, who knows. Anyway, so where are we at? So I specialise, in case you don't know, I specialise in working with crack cocaine users. I pioneered services in the UK, in Britain, in the 90s. Started in 91, and then I was doing conferences and so forth by the mid-90s. And I developed the services and got John Major to put up 16 million and so forth after I sort of spoke out at a conference, which is all this is on other videos. But this is what validates me to be in a position to see what's what. Now, because I set up the drug service for crack cocaine users, and I set up independent of government, and that wasn't really approved of, so a lot of effort went into destroying me and taking me down, and I wasn't able to walk for 9 months. And then after the 9 months, funnily enough, the next morning, the day before they did my surgery on my spine, the child was born, who I then had to later work to have her care order revoked. And it was the mother of that child, who I didn't really know at the time, although I had met the mother years prior, but I'll get to that. And so that child was born. I wouldn't be surprised if they sort of did some sort of little blood ritual or some sort of shit like that. But anyway, let's not go there, let's stick to this. So basically I ended up, you can read it on blogs and listen it on videos, I ended up with the mother, and we all lived together as one family, and I home educated the child and the next child that was born, amongst the trying to get the child back from social services and revoke the care order. So in that process, when they did return the child, we saw that the child, well, at the time I didn't even understand programming, this was back in 2000, and the child didn't make no sense. And then later I sort of learned about mind control programming, so obviously then I learned that she'd been programmed in care, and that social services entangled in the child trafficking and paedophile rings and so forth, which again I've addressed on other videos. I'm saying all this because I want to show that, therefore, in the back of this, I had to come to understand mind control, gang stalking, occult attacks, because this is what they did to the mother once she sort of moved away from all the handlers. And she also, then I realised, needed to deprogram too, so she deprogrammed. And she was a professional singer, so this is how I learned of how they may treat singers, because basically she had 2 hits and she did world tours with them, and they were successful, but each year on her birthday they would come and ask her to sell her soul in another altar, and which she sort of retrieved from memory, and each year she'd refuse to sell her soul. So that's how they bred her, really, to have the child that was born while I was in hospital. And then when the child was born, they took him to care and showed to her if you sell your soul, everything could be alright. But if you don't sell your soul, it won't be. Well, she didn't sell her soul, and we did get the care order revoked, but that may have been part of another little drama play, because then I later learned that I was also programmed too, and so it might have been for me to be educated on these things. Now, in that, through the programming with her, then I learned what went on and how she came to be a crack user, because she wasn't really a crack. I mean, when she first came, she didn't make any sense whatsoever, because she was behaving like a 24/7 user, sort of spinning all over the place, and yet she hardly used, and she hadn't used in weeks, and when she did use, she couldn't even finish the whole rock because it was too much, because she was already quite a hyperactive person, so it wasn't suitable to her, although crack is an equal opportunities drug. But it didn't really make sense, and that's why I had to learn that there was other types of crack users that I'd never come across before, because she didn't fit. So it was a bit of a challenge. But yes, they feed drugs into celebrities, and I should think it's quite hard in that field to stay away from drugs or alcohol, because that's the celebrity lifestyle, and it's a way of keeping control over you. She used for a short while, and she managed to stop and get her child back. But yes, in retrieving the memories, let's go there. Yeah, also I'd like to point out that crack and cocaine, it's like, it makes you feel like you've succeeded already, and so to high achievers it's very inviting, but it means that the high achievers will never go past go, because well, they might, but they would have gone a lot further if they wasn't using crack or cocaine, because it misleads and makes them have misjudgment and so forth, where without the drugs the high achievers would achieve. So what happens is, when a celebrity, or a person who's not a celebrity, but I wanted to use celebrities because they're a good example, when a celebrity won't play ball, when they won't do as they're told, when they won't sell their soul, when they won't do what their handlers, owners wish them to do, then they'll be dealt with by triggering the crack or cocaine or heroin or substance alter. And then what happens is that if they're not playing ball, really the media is not separate from all this. The media is part of the matrix, part of the bigger system, and therefore the people in the media will be instructed to make sure that everyone sees how bad they are on drugs and look at the mess they're in. And so that there's a whole orchestrated drama that will go in the media to show you how bad that individual is now and how bad they're on drugs. And if they didn't want you to know that that person was on drugs, you wouldn't know. But if they want you to know, then they will just get the worst pictures of you and make you look like the worst. So they did it. I mean, a good example, Amy Winehouse, and it's like, they had the worst pictures, and so yes, yeah, when I offered to help, no, I couldn't, and so it was sort of predictable, and everyone was like, oh, she's going to die of drugs. So when she died, it's like, oh yes, yeah, you see, she died because we knew she would die. But the thing is, there was all suspicious stuff around her dying, like her house in Camden, people heard next door like loads of shouting and drumming and all weird stuff, which wasn't investigated, because you didn't need to investigate it, because you could blame it on the drugs, and that's what it was, wasn't it? And then of course they got all the money and her royalties, and then they could set up the drug project that didn't want my book. Interesting, that. So yes, I don't know whether Sinead is on crack or not. I don't actually think she is, because I've seen her post some messages on social media in the last year, and she was saying that she was on some, she'd smoked, I think, cannabis, and they'd been prescribed some sort of drug, which yes, they like to also, if you are unruly, pull you into the system, either into the psychiatric side of things or into the prison system. So that's another way to deal with you, but drugs is one way to humiliate you, isn't it? And then it's like, if it's an alter, it's very hard to stop. So I don't think Sinead was, but I think that was just someone showing understanding. Now, when I'm dealing with the singer now who refused to sell a soul, and I've written here, we never got to work out where the crack programming started in her, but she did recall memories of being very young and feeling like she'd been given cocaine, because a lot of time when your memories start coming back, you can have the feelings of the time, the sensations, and so therefore the young alter will have the sensation of cocaine in their body, and they will start it young, so that later you don't know why you're so addicted to the drug, and it doesn't make sense, but it's another alter. Also, there seems to be some aspect of her life connected with crack. For in other retrieved memories, she sees herself frantically trying to hide bags of crack whilst being videoed. And yeah, this was in another retrieved memory, that she remembers the handlers being there with a video camera and her like really desperate to hide the drugs, and as if it was seriously real. But it was in another alter, and she'd never been a dealer or anything like that. She was a singer. She also retrieved, whilst she was fighting to get her daughter back, she got pregnant again, and whilst she was due in court in a couple of days after he was born, but just before he was born, a few years later, she retrieved memory of before she gave birth to her son, the night before, we think it was, the baby's father and her brother, who was handling her at the time, came in the night and took her in the night in a different altar, and took her, and she remembered laying on a table and then mixing something in a bowl that was like white powder, and she says that it's very likely coke and something else. And then after they'd given her the concoction, then she remembered them slapping her across the stomach. I think it was a woman who was, I've written it here, but basically, oh yeah, the brother's wife, yes, slapping her across the stomach to cause distress, to cause disassociation to the child in her womb. Now, whether this was done more than once, I don't know, but this is what they do, is to program, they will create disassociation in the womb before you're even born. They will cause trauma to the mother. I was a month premature, put in an incubator, and this is trauma to a newly born child. So and my mum was chopping wood, so it's like, that's trauma too. And so they traumatise near the birth and other times to get the baby to disassociate in the womb, to start that process. And then yes, the next day her waters broke early, and really yes, the waters broke, and then she went into a hospital to have the baby. And then when she was there, the hospital was really being horrible to her, and kept taking her blood, and so every day they took her blood, saying, we need to test to see if you're anemic, which she wasn't. But what I've learned since is, when the baby's born, often what the cult do is take some of your blood and then give it to the baby, to give the baby the taste for blood, to get used to the taste of blood. And obviously with her blood as well, they'd put drugs in her system, although they were probably testing for drugs, because, as I say, something like the next day or the day after, she had to appear in court all normal and trying to get her child back, the daughter. And social services up until the birth was not aware that she was pregnant. And so they weren't too happy when they found out that she'd given birth, because she'd hidden it all through the contacts with loose clothing and so forth. But she knew that also they would be setting up to take that child. But it actually worked for her, because then she could show through this new baby that she was quite capable of looking after the baby, because she had been drug free for a while then, and it took about 2.5 years to revoke the care order, but it did get revoked. And also I would like to add that the child, because yes, they orchestrate the births. Your births under mind control, under cult, don't tend to, you think they just are the dates they are, but they're not. It's like mine's the 6th of February, the same as Bob Marley. He was programmed, but once he turned Christian, then they had to get rid of him. So the boy was born on the 11th of the 11th, 2000, which meant on the 11th of the 11th of the 11th, he was 11. And 11 is the most powerful numerological number. So I suppose they've got quite a bit of hope. They kept saying how special he was. And he is, darling, but... yes. When she gave birth to him, the table was collapsing under her. Then they got another table. Then the baby's head was coming out, and the midwife said, "Oh, you know, she just pull the baby back a minute because she's got to put the gloves on." I mean, this is all ridiculous. And then the brother brought in some alcohol, and she hadn't seen the family for ages, for them years, because she'd stayed away from them. But they all turned up without being told. They all turned up as she was giving birth. There you go, offering to help. So. Yeah, it's written here that I remember her coming in 1996, so that was 4 years before, and she'd come in when I was teaching crack users weight training. We used to have this day after the millions came up from John Major, thank you. I was able to run a little weight training for crack users, cocaine users, and she came then after finishing the world tours, and she wasn't on crack, but when she'd come in and she'd come in for the lessons of weight training, but to me it was like she was a crack user then, and she was spinning everywhere then, and I'm pretty good at my job, so I can sort of sense a crack user's energy, and her energy was like a crack user, and then the workers at the project would say, "No, she says she's not using anything," and I'd be like, "No, she is, she must be, I can sense it." And I mean, since then I spoke to her, and it was like, no, she hadn't, in her awareness, hadn't been using anything. Now, whether she was using in another altar and I was picking it up or not, I'm not sure now. But at the time, I know it was like, it was so strong. But at that time, she wasn't addicted to crack. She was using pills, which they were giving her, and then they gave her crack to smoke, but they didn't tell her it was crack. It was the child's father who gave her it, nice of him. And yes, so also, yeah, it's given in young. I mean, I remember as well, my boss, I've written here at the time, and he told me how he was given a crack pipe by his uncle, age 5. And I mean, it was just a conversation that I remember having with him. But it's like, and as far as I'm concerned, he's MC. I mean, he may not think he is, but as far as I'm concerned, he is. And yes, he was given it at age 5. So it seems to be that, yes, they'll give the drugs, they'll give the alcohol young, but often in other altars. And then when you don't, if you're a celebrity or whatever, when you don't play ball, then they trigger them altars. So what happens is when they give you them drugs, that will bring them altars forward, and them altars have already got the addiction, so you haven't even got the 6-month incubation period that the drug would normally give you, because you've already got the addiction in you. They may have given you it at birth. Well, I've just written about. I mean, yes, the Masons are all involved. So I did write here that, yeah, I told the Black Masons, which I've written in a letter to the Freemasons, and I told them, you know, because they wasn't, basically, I got so far deprogramming the woman, and then it was too dangerous for them because it was exposing too much. I found children that she'd given birth to underage in other countries, and the DNA test would prove that it was all true. So they sort of separated us all, and so I sort of tried my hardest to create a little bit of stir to get them to let me get to see her, but they made it worse. So there you go. So before people judge, you best look at the individual and ask, do they look like they are fighting against a system of oppression? Because else you're just going to judge. If you're just judging on outward, like, I don't know, I don't watch media, I don't follow it all, but they've probably got someone on drugs now that you ought to focus on. But you have to look at, well, what's going on behind that, what, you know, how, because they're just using them. They don't need to focus on it. If they choose to, it's about they want to bring that person down. Like Sinead stood up against the Pope and the paedophiles in a life changed beyond recognition. I've written here, I don't quite know. Lauren Hill will get another one who stood up against the Pope. I don't understand whether she was on crack or not, but I think possibly. And they've took all, you know, all her money disappears, and then there you go. Now she's got to go to prison for not paying her taxes. She seems to have done quite a lot of deprogramming as well, Lauren Hill, but she will be finding it hard to get away from them because they'll just utilise that. It's like, it's very, you can't, well. So support those celebs who speak out. They are the only route into the realm of the media, the public arena where concepts are constructed and followed. And it is, if you don't support those that speak out, and I mean, a lot of the time they'll speak out and then they get taken out. And if you're not going to support them, if you're only going to judge them of, oh, look at her, look how bad she is now, you know, then we're never going to get the truth, because they're the only ones with the voice in the media. And I've tried to have voice, and I'm being silenced in every way. Videos on YouTube, yes, they are running, but the hit counts are very low. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as people are seeing, then it's getting heard. So, but a lot of what I do is hidden. So I want to add on, because it may be that you see these videos, I want to show you the book that can help any crack user. It'll probably help cocaine users, stimulant users, or any drugs. Because they're all very similar. Well, it is for crack and cocaine, and really for stimulant users, but it would work in anything. And it's called Stop Using Crack Cocaine and Reclaim Your Life. You can buy it off of Amazon. You can get it out. If they hide it, a lot of my books are hidden from search engines. So put in Stop Using Crack Cocaine and Reclaim Your Life, Lewis Clark, BSc Honours, or if you go to my website, higherinsight.co.uk or higherinsight.webs.com, you should be able to, I'll put a link as also below this video for it. So this book is very simple to read. I've written it so just basic English. It's not for the professionals at all. It's totally written in short parts for the users. And then I also wrote a poetry book for those who are sort of interested in the mind control aspects and so forth, because basically it's so dark, it's so deep, it's so painful that one gets in a position where it's like, no, I can't make videos, you know, it's pain. And so I tend to feel like I'm going to burst, and so then I write poetry before I burst, and I put all the poems, people like my poems, so I put them all in a book. And that's called Insight into Darkness, Poetic Truth, Lewis Clark, BSc Honours. Again, I'll put a link to below for this, because again, this is so hidden, and it's, I can't remember, probably about £5. I don't tend to charge loads for the books. So I wanted to read, just to finish off, a poem that is in that book that I wrote on that blog. And I can't remember when I wrote it, for what, but it was to do with the drug. So I just want to read it now, just to end it, and so you get a taste of my poetry. So it's called Forced to Choose. So, forced to choose with nothing to lose, kill or be killed. I chose no blood on my hands, so I could still enter the promised land. Like a red rag to the ball, I lost it all. Some hoped I would shatter, stumble or fall. Fight fire with fire, but that's not my desire. So I'll rise up higher, whilst my body won't tire. All material gone, I'm forced to move on. But my soul stays calm whilst my mind hears the alarm. People await my reaction to fate, but I hesitate, 'cause it's not too late. If the Lord has my back, there's no need to attack, for your shit is whack. Whitney lost it to crack. And so did Lauren, and so did Faith Evans, and so did MJ, and silenced they stay. Ridiculed by the media to stop words that would feed you. Of the truth unknown, play or be played, that's how it's weighed. The public so blinded of works hard to hide it. What really does go down behind the front altars, torturing daughters, led to the slaughters. Oh, Whitney got fat, aged on that crack, but look again and again at Whitney's rise and fall, at her pregnancy stories, yet no babies at all. Only Bobby, who was taken from her to the family. Yet I watch her womb expand on my TV. The public say, oh, she got fat, oh, she forgot her words, as if she's still on crack. The same for Lauren, recordings we can't find. They say she lost her mind the minute she told the Pope to repent for the abuse they do to babies for Lent. No studio band and the bassist removed. She don't turn up, her fans confused. Put them on crack, they all look whack, they ain't coming back. But they're under attack. Whitney, Amy Lauren Hill, Faith Evans, Tracy Chapman, our sisters they steal. People wake up and smell the truth. It's all set up and I've got proof. When you hold the truth in your mind, then the reasons are not hard to find. Whitney managed by her dad. Same with Amy, they act so sad. But to me it's a front, again for the blind. It's sick and twisted, no help they find. How can that be that drugs hold them? That keep returning again, they keep returning again and again. They make crack look like an impossible prison, yet I have seen thousands from its trap be risen. Even those crack holds on the floor still come back to settle the score. Yet these sisters, with so much to lose, seem to reject their path and crack they choose. It can't be so, I tell you all. There's more involved than sick media ridicule. It's all arranged and goes to plan. It's sick and twisted. Help us God, amen. And yes, many have died since I wrote that poem. They weren't dead when I wrote it. And so I leave you with that. And I hope that I've helped some people to understand addiction to crack cocaine better, and that if they are addicted and can't make sense of themselves, maybe look again and see, are you possibly under some sort of mind control? And it's an alter. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.